Hello everyone. Today I will be showing you how to make effective online PowerPoint presentation. And I'm confident that after this online session is over, your presentations will no longer remain the same. So as you can see, I've inserted some 3D objects here, and I will be showing you how 3D objects can be inserted to make your presentations lifelike. Okay, so the learning objective of this learning session is that by the end of the session we'll be able to know and demonstrate what are the basic best practices when planning and preparing presentations, and how to use motivational opening sentences and one sentence lesson plan, which is required by Higher Education Commission. And we'll be exploring how you can use visual aid resources effectively. I'll be giving you 9 tips on how to use a Microsoft PowerPoint for presenting, and specifically how to use audiovisual aids. So you've heard it before, first impressions are powerful, and the main thing is that you have to start strong. The first 2-3 minutes are of the presentation are the most important. The audience wants to like you, and they will give you a few minutes at the beginning to engage them. So don't miss this opportunity. Most presenters fail here because they ramble on too long about superficial things, while what you have to do is you have to talk about what is really motivating. So how do you start your presentation? You start your presentation by introducing yourself and why they should listen to you. You can start it either with a humor, either with a short story, either from a startling statistic. For instance, a mortality rate or morbidity rate, which you can take it from the newspaper or the news channel clip, anything that can engage the audience, and so that they can think and try to invite their participation as well. And what you need is you need to have some kind of audience response as to whether they are being motivated or not. So how to do that? So the best way is to use the one motivation sentence. So one sentence motivation. So whenever you're planning a presentation, the main thing is, why are students learning this? You need to know this, and you need to tell them why they're learning this. Uh, Students can download presentations from SlideShare. They can download it from any place on the internet. So they need to know why this presentation is important, why do students need to know this, and what's in it for them. So for clinicians, I would advise them to start off with a clinical presentation of any patient that they had, or any other clinical scenario for basic sciences. So you have to involve them, and you have to show the clinical relevance and the clinical significance of whatever they are teaching. Uh, so it doesn't matter where you're speaking, it doesn't matter whom you're speaking to and what you're speaking about. You have to understand that whenever you're delivering presentations, whether it's online, whether it's face-to-face presentations, main thing is that this is show business. You have to understand this. And whenever we talk about show business, it means that any presentation or any speech for that matter must entertain the audience. The audience has to be entertained, and you have to take the audience into perspective whenever you're delivering the lecture. So how do you complete the opening statement? So once you have told them the one sentence motivation, you tell them what the topic is, and you just introduce the topic and tell them what is the problem, and why should they be caring about it. What is the clinical significance of this problem, and what is the solution. And then usually it's better to have a pre-test, so that you have a an estimation of what they already know, so that you can build up on that. So either you can ask them in a question, or you can have a pre-test. Both are acceptable. So the one senses motivation also comes in when you need to deliver an elevator speech. So what is an elevator speech? Elevator speech is actually uh, a speech that can be delivered in an elevator if you find someone important and you want to sell them an idea. So elevator speeches are very short, they're 2 to 3 minutes, and basically you have to engage them, whoever you're talking with, and you have to sell your idea to them. So elevator speeches are very helpful whenever you're talking to your bosses, your head of departments, and whenever you're giving an effective online presentation. So now we'll come up to the lesson plan. So instead of telling you about the nitty-gritty of the lesson plan, the basic lesson plan is that what the students need to know at the end of the class. So whatever you're delivering, what do you want them to learn at the end of the class? So, and this should be you should be able to tell them before you actually start the presentation. So before you start with the learning objectives, after you have given them the learning objectives, you tell them that by the end of the presentation, I want you to know about these three things. And this lesson objectives and this one sentence lesson plan will be repeated at the end as well, where they will be taking this as a take home message. So uh, and whatever presentation you've got, just try to memorize three things that you need your students to know, or you need your students to take home regarding that presentation. So this is briefly how a presentation should look like. There should be one sentence motivation, then there should be learning objectives, one sentence lesson plan, and then you start with the main body, and then conclusion, and then post test. And here where the rule of three comes in. So rule of three is tell them what you're going to tell them in the learning objectives, and then in the main body you tell them again, and once you end it, and you tell them what you have already told them, and these will be your take-home messages. So this is the best way of showing what a lesson plan is, the rule of three, and try to memorize this rule of three. And whenever you're giving online presentation, the rule of three will actually help you a lot in not only signposting it and not only for memorizing it, but it will be easier for students to learn what they need to learn. So how much of material should be there? So you should try to limit the scope, say more with less. So you should have actually less slides and less material on it, and you should try to limit the detail. A professor of mine usually used to say that teachers, and specifically academicians and medical teachers, they suffer from a disorder which is known as coveritis. So what is coveritis? Coveritis is actually uh, it's a morbid disease that you need to cover everything that is in the books, everything that is in the syllabus, and but in the presentation you don't need to do that. If you want to give them details, you can give them handouts, you can give them links, you can give them videos for that. Okay, you don't need to cover everything in the presentation. You just need to tell them what they need to know, and you can take them in the test, and you can include them in the summative or formative test. So the one of the most important things is that you should try to use audiovisual aids, and try to remember the age-old adage that a picture is worth 1,000 words and a video is worth 1,000 pictures. So try to use videos and pictures as much as possible in your presentation, and I will be showing you how to embed a picture or a video in your presentation to make it more engaging and interactive. So what does this picture tell you? This picture tells you that students, they try uh, to how much do they actually gain from whatever you're saying and whatever you're telling them. So if there's a visual aid, be it a picture or a video, they actually try to retain around 55%. So around 55% of material that you're giving them will be retained by the students, and this is a very important statistic. So the more senses that you involve, the more knowledge will be retained by the students. So another principle is the KISS principle, to keep it short and sweet. So, and no one ever complained of a speech being too short. So try to make it simple and short. And the other thing is design. So your design of presentation is basically 90% of the work. Another important thing is try to take some pace and pauses, and try to engage the audience whenever you're taking these pauses, and try to take a deep breath, and try to understand that the audience is not your enemy. They are actually there to support you if you support them and if you try to understand their needs. And it's very important to have an appropriate pace. A lot of students on Andorra University's portal, they actually complained that the presenters were actually moving too fast, and they were not able to keep up the pace with the presenters. So I'm not telling you to be too slow. You shouldn't be too slow or too fast, but what actually happens is that when you're nervous, you tend to talk very fast and you may not realize that. And so it's better to learn to speak at the right pace, and the best way to do it is to practice. Try to practice the presentation before you actually deliver it, and this is where practice makes you perfect. Now I'm going to reiterate again on the rule of three. So try to understand that whenever you're telling a presentation, when you're giving a presentation, the rule of three kicks in. And the rule of three is tell them what you will tell them, and tell them what you've already told them. So what about the content? Okay, so the content is also very important. You have to establish a subject and focus on it, prioritize the information, have a clear structure, and try to make it concise and simple. Try to build good foundations. Don't try to uh, incorporate as much material as you can. Try to make it short and simple, and main thing is try to introduce concepts, and try to time each section. The Higher Education Commission has actually given specific instructions that online sessions should not be more than 40 to 45 minutes, and there should be a 15 to 20-minute break before the next session actually starts. And one of the complaints of students was that sometimes the sessions went up to 2 to 3 hours. So the session should be uh, controlled with time, and appropriate visual aids should be added. And you should also have a backup plan if technology fails. So now the 9 tips for oral presentations are online or digital presentations. Try to remember that you should have only the minimum required text on your slide. A simple rule of thumb is the rule of six. So 6 words per bullet item, 6 bullets per slide, and 6 word slides in a row. So whenever you're making presentations, try to include this. You don't need to write full sentences, just bullet points and main uh, just summary of what you want to tell them. You can incorporate as much text as you want in your notes section, and you can read them out if you want to, but uh, on the presentation itself it should not be more than 6. So 6 words per bullet item, and there should be 6 bullets, and there should be 6 word slides in a row. So this is the rule of 6. The second tip is try to use the same amount of transitions and animations instead of mixing it all. So as you can see, the text that is appearing is actually distracting to the audience, and you don't want them to actually try to make out what's going to happen next. The best way is to use the appear effect. So this is the appear effect. It appears immediately. To use the appear effect rather than all the other effects that are present in the animations. And not this fancy effects. As you see, this is actually quite distracting. And be consistent in your choice of bullets, fonts, and colors. Uh, as you can see, this is quite distracting and the colors are not actually matching with the background. So what should be an ideal font size? The ideal font size should be around 40 point Arial black for the title size. It can be Arial black, Calibri, but Arial black is considered to be one of the best font sizes for presentation, for PowerPoint presentation. And now 36 point Arial body can be used for the bullet points, and you can go as small uh, as 28 points. Don't go beyond 28 because it will be very hard for the students or for the audience to actually go through. Now as you can see below, this is a 12 point Verdana 12 point font, and 12 point is that is why it is not acceptable for presentations. Now another thing about fonts and background colors that you will be using, that it should be a good mix of colors and it should be readable. As you can see, these are all examples of bad mix of colors. And whenever using graphics such as tables and charts, you should try to use them appropriately. This is an example how not to use tables, as this slide is clearly showing. Instead of that, try to emphasize what you want to show them. and try to animate the graphs and table elements, and we'll be showing you separately how to use the different tools in Microsoft PowerPoint to enable you to use those colors. So I'll just try to show you. Now this is a graph. Here you can actually add the table, and then it can actually show you that it is growing. And here you can actually even encircle what is important for you. Now remember that white space is our friend. Try to use white backgrounds rather than black backgrounds, and if you're using black backgrounds, then uh, uh, whatever you're writing should be white. Now try not to use this slide overkill. As I've told you, try to use only the minimum number of words, and this is where the rule of 6 comes in. And try not to use background pictures. Background should be plain. And another example of using artworks. Artworks are actually quite distracting. Only use artworks if it is if it is trying to if it is helping your presentation. And contrast should be light on dark. As you can see, these are not complementary colors. These colors do not complement. Here, as you can see, these colors are complementing. The most important tip is that you are the show and not the PowerPoint. So try to engage them, try to tell them what's important for them, try to tell them from the examination point of view what is important, bring in some clinical scenarios, bring in some clinical relevance. And this is where your expertise comes in, because anyone can read the slide. The students actually can read faster than the presenter. So so what actually makes the design of a presentation ineffective? Do not just simply read from the slides. The students can read more than that. So these are actually based on complaints of students. The teachers and presenters actually reading the slides word by word, and the text is too small. As I've already told you that they are using font sizes which are actually smaller than 28. The minimum font size that should be used for bullet points is 28, and if you go up, it's much better. So a 32 or 34 font size is considered to be an ideal font size. Uh, and try to say more with less you have, and try not to use full sentences. Only use points for it. Okay, so do use some graphics in your slideshow. Nothing is more boring than only a slide that has only text which is showing. Okay, now we come to the audiovisual aids. Try to use, whenever you're trying to insert a picture or a photograph, try to use only a GPG or GPEG format. And this format is usually compatible with all the PowerPoint presentations, and it is not only acceptable, but it is recommended by the PowerPoint. So whenever you're inserting a picture, what resolution should you use? Now, if you just look at the right side of the picture and the left side of the picture, the right and left side of the picture are of different DPI. The image here is of 1.4 MB and here it's of 240 K. And if you just look at it, you cannot tell the difference. And why this is so? Because any image, any high resolution image that you insert into PowerPoint presentation, it actually compresses it, and it takes it to 72 or 80 DPI. So try not to use high resolution pictures in it. So if it's an on-screen, up to 92 DPI is the best, uh, and it is also very easy to email. If you take anything above 92, it will be very difficult. But if you're printing, then it's better to have a 300 DPI. So although high resolution look better when printed, but when you're making into a presentation, it really doesn't make any difference at all. Okay, another important thing is if you're unable to understand all of the nitty-gritty of how much DPI you should use, and whether you should use GPG or you should use GIF or TIF, TIFF images, GIF images. So the best way is use the screenshot option. The screenshot option actually compresses it, and it makes it makes it acceptable for the PowerPoint presentation, and it embeds it as well. So the screenshot option, I'll be showing you how you can embed pictures from the internet, from Google Images, from anywhere you want. You can take screenshots of books, you can take screenshots of videos, and you can insert them in your presentation. And this is actually quite interesting, and this will be after this presentation. So try to make it interactive, and you should be able to jump to any slide. We'll be showing you how you can jump to any slide, how you can blank the screen. For instance, if you're asking questions, you can just blank the screen and ask them. And you can actually draw on the screen, like I'm drawing. You can actually draw on the screen. You can ask them things to try to make use Microsoft PowerPoint as a whiteboard and not just as a tool for reading the slides out and screenshots. So the last thing is, if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. This is Benjamin Franklin's quote, and try to rehearse as much as you can. And we are here to help you. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. My email address is jafar.zaidi@dohs.edu.pk. Thank you for listening.